Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this live webinar series on the Legal Expert Guide to Data Breaches and Ransomware Attacks in Southeast Asia. My name is Ng Woan Na, and I'm the Regional Legal Advisor and representative of both ASEAN and China Desk based in our DFDL Bangkok office, and I'll be very pleased to be the moderator for today's discussion. And just a brief introduction on DFDL, we are a full legal and tax advisory firm based in Southeast Asia, an ASEAN-born firm with nearly 30 years of history. We have developed dedicated regional and sector-based key practice group with technology and compliance being one of them. So our discussion for today will focus on the prevalence of data breach incidents and ransomware attacks in Bangladesh. And as all of us may be aware, incidents on this front have increased at an escalating speed as the result of a shift of global consumers' usage towards online services, and with companies collecting an increasing volume of data contributed primarily as the result of COVID-19. So it is critical now more than ever for businesses and consumers like us to take data security seriously. And a couple of housekeeping notes before we kickstart. You can post your questions at any time in the right-hand Q&A window. We will do our best to read and consider all questions, but depending on the amount of time and questions we have, we will unfortunately not be able to address all of them. Of course, you're very welcome to email our speaker for any further specific question. I would now like to introduce our speaker for today, Shahwar Nizam. He is a partner and managing director of our Bangladesh office, a banking and corporate specialist. Shahwar also regularly advises some of our key clients, both local and international companies, on data protection compliance. Great having you here, Shahwar, and thank you for participating in today's session.
Well, thank you very much. It's a very interesting and relevant topic, increasingly relevant for multinationals and global companies that are looking to do business in our part of the world, where we are not yet fully equipped or to some extent not yet fully ready to handle some of the bigger threats in this sector. So I think it's very timely that we have this session.
Thank you, Shahwar. So let's kickstart our session for today. And the first question being that in the context of your jurisdiction, please, can you share with us in terms of the level of growing prevalence of ransomware attacks, the top harms resulted from data breach, and as well as the industry most commonly affected by such incidents? Well, of course, this can be made by reference to your advisory experiences, as well as statistics published by the local authority in Bangladesh.
Thank you very much, Ng Woan Na. This is something that is becoming more and more prevalent as more and more people are using data and are going online for their day-to-day activities, in addition to using social media and others. Bangladesh in the last 2 years has done tremendously well in digitizing a lot of the government services during COVID. And now we are in a position where payments and other solutions for a lot of the different government departments are also available online. And the private sector has always been ahead of this than the government, and they have also been doing a lot of digitization. So it is increasingly important area for us in Bangladesh. And obviously, along with the global trends, we have seen our share of ransomware attacks, hacker attacks, leaks and data breaches, and virus attacks, and all sorts of related incidents. Since 2016, I mean, there are some government statistics which I can make available later on. Since 2016 to 2020, we have seen increasing number of ransomware attacks. There has been 30 large incidents that I'm aware of being reported in the last couple of years, and there has been sporadic incidents of ransomware and hacker attacks all over the country. We have had that infamous incident with our central bank, where a number of hackers tried to hack and get away with a large amount of money. That has been the most prominent news internationally that happened a few years ago. But apart from that, we have seen hacker attacks in the in a number of industry areas such as banking and financial services. We have seen it in healthcare, basically as areas where there is a large amount of data stored, a large amount of transaction data, personal data, usage data. These are the areas where we have seen attacks. I mean, the good thing was that up until recently, a lot of the institutions, financial institutions and others, they were not as prevalent or they were not as prominent in the internet, or they were not as tech savvy. So the breaches were not really that bad in terms of the impact, because there weren't really that much out there. But now, over the last few years, with the development that has happened, and with the way a lot of the payment services and other things have gone online, this is going to become a very serious issue if there is a breach. However, if we look at the statistics, it seems that since 2020, the number of attacks or the number of reported incidents have actually gone down. So that's a very interesting trend, that while the number of services and use have gone up, the number of incidents have gone down.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you, Shahwar, for sharing this information, and I understand the statistics will be shown at a later stage. So indeed, a security incident, be it minor or major, it can be devastating to organizations and leading, of course, to loss of personal info as the result of poorly securitized computerized system, and also possibly lead to potentially costly lawsuits and regulatory action. So from this perspective, please can you share with us in terms of the development of governing laws regulating data breach incidents in Bangladesh? Is there any overarching data breach reporting legislation on this front?
Yes, Bangladesh has actually done quite well since 2016-17 in catching up with a lot of these things. Now, while you may say that whether this is enough or not, that's a different question altogether. But the good thing is that we have started with the laws and regulations. We started with what we know as the ICT Act, Information and Communications Technology Act. That was from 2016-17. And that basically started off a lot of these things about the definition of data, the definition of breach, and a number of these issues. What happens if there is a breach? What happens if there is hacking? What is illegal intrusion? What is data theft? And all of these concepts were introduced. And also that act started setting up a number of government agencies, or started paving the way for setting up of a number of government agencies under the ICT ministry, that would look at or deal with data security, data breach incidents. One of the notable entity is CIRT, Center for Incident Reporting and Technology. I mean, that entity is basically one of the key entities that is involved in handling breaches of data security, that works with the police and other authorities in investigations, in pursuing, and a lot of these things. And then recently we have come up with, in the last couple of years, we have come up with the Digital Security Act that further talks about or elaborates further and deals with the whole evolution of the whole data industry, and how that is transpiring, and how the different laws and regulations would be used to deal with the different incidents, because you can't really have one generic law to deal with all these different types of incidents. So the laws had to evolve and had to come up with relevant provisions to deal with the different type of incidents. And along with it, we have seen the setting up of Bangladesh Computer Council and a number of other entities such as Research Lab and other entities that would continue to work in identifying threats before they come in, and other agencies under those organizations. We have also seen the government coming up with a number of other policies. There is a policy on ransomware attacks, a specific policy on ransomware attacks that has more recently been developed, and in fact, just yesterday the second edition came out. And we have seen that that was very effective in giving the first flavor of what to do in the event there is a ransomware attack. So there is a number of things, a number of initiatives that the government has taken to deal with ransomware threats and hacker threats. There's also the Government of Bangladesh Information Security Manual, which in short we call it GOBISM. That is also a document that is continuously evolving, and that is something that the government is implementing. And with this ransomware manual and GOBISM, these two documents the government have started implementing in all the different government agencies. And now the government is also going out and asking private sector companies to adopt it or follow it or implement it in their own organizations. So you have the two umbrella laws, the ICT Act and the DSA, the Digital Security Act, and you have a number of other manuals and circulars and other things that the government is coming up with that are sort of trickling down, and together they form the whole ecosystem of laws and regulations in this sector.
Thanks, Shahwar, for this very high-level response from the legal domain. So from the information you have presented, we understand that the laws governing data breach incidents in Bangladesh, it continues to evolve, and the recently enforced ransomware manual and GOBISM, and as well as the establishment of several government entities, also reflect the growing awareness on the part of the government to regulate data protection in Bangladesh. And of course, we know that cyber criminals, they do not discriminate, and we are seeing new and more sophisticated forms of attacks emerge regularly. So practically, how should an organization respond to internal and external data breach incidents? Can you share with us some of the top cybersecurity best practices?
You see, I think for private organizations, I think for a lot of large organizations, it's pretty easy. They have the resources and the funding to deal with having their internal systems beefed up, have sort of proper antivirus, anti-malware, and those kind of softwares that protect their internal system. But also, I think it's important to make people aware. Awareness, I think, is one of the first things that should be there, especially in countries like Bangladesh, where all of this is quite new for many people. Okay, so for many people, dealing with phishing emails or spam emails, or where you always see ransomware softwares and viruses attached to them. Educating them about these is also, I think, a very important aspect, and that's what the government has done in a way that when they send out information. And the ICT ministry, in addition to all of these policies and manuals that I've mentioned, regularly send out newspaper adverts, TV adverts, and we see billboards trying to make people aware of the risks in phishing, risks in cyber attacks, and the risks in social media abuse, and all of these things. We have seen sort of billboards going out. We have seen a number of others going out. So all of these things are matters that the private entities are actually being pushed to take into account. I mean, while the large organizations, multinationals, are pretty aware, they have the budget, they have the resources and know it all to deal with these, the riskier entities are more sort of local entities, more, I would say, the SMEs, which are more susceptible to these type of threats. While the large institutions like banks and financial institutions, if we take that, they are mostly, I mean, if anything happens to them, the impact will be the most severe with banks and financial institutions, right? But we see the government has come up with a special memo that will be circulated that is being circulated to the banks and financial institutions about ransomware. The central bank that governs and regulates the banks and financial institutions, they regularly push banks and institutions about updating their systems and and deal with their data breach issues. The most riskiest entities are the SMEs, who are not sophisticated enough, who don't have a lot of the money, who don't have the resources to spend on all these protections. So for them, building awareness, I think, is the most crucial thing. Making people aware about the potential threats, making people aware of what not to do and how to protect their own data is, I think, crucial. And that's what a lot of the government manuals are doing. And the government is going out and telling all these organizations that, look, if you can't adopt your own, or if you can't come up with your own, follow this. Because the government manuals are pretty generic and quite detailed. And as I said, that new versions are coming out. Just yesterday, a new version came out. So it's easier for a lot of these organizations to adopt them and at least start preparing against data breach and threats.
Thanks, Shahwar, for drawing a difference between the internal and external breach incidents, and also sharing with us some of the practical and useful suggestions, both legal and technical solutions, including creating awareness, as you emphasize, amongst SME in particular. So moving to my next and final question, and this relates to in the case of a transfer of data from Bangladesh to other countries. So can you discuss on some of the precautionary measures which companies can take to better prepare for such transaction in order to prevent any potential international data breach incident?
So in Bangladesh, there is some regulations under the banking and finance laws that require certain transaction data to be housed and stored in Bangladesh. And permission of central bank and other authorities is required to move the data outside Bangladesh. So there is an adequate level of protection for banking and finance transactional data. But the risk on other data is still there. And as I mentioned, that especially a lot of the SMEs, they're not really adequately prepared financially and otherwise to deal with these kind of things. So what a lot of these organizations are being asked to do is first educate their internal people against internal breaches, because as we know, internal breaches can be very common and can be devastating if someone within the organization leaks or takes copies and then circulates it and things like that. So educating them, getting them into a legal binding on confidentiality and other things, that's very, very important. Making them understand the importance of confidentiality and the possible consequences of breach of confidentiality under the laws that has a very severe penal provisions is also important. And then you have this other issue of dealing with potential external threats from outside. And again, I mean, you know, even the simplest antivirus can actually save a lot of things in these sort of incidents. Simple things like not clicking on phishing emails and attachments can save from severe international external threats.
Thank you very much, Shahwar, for your sharing of these high-level inputs. Indeed, they are very valuable and essential for our audience's understanding. Thank you. Now, it is time for our Q&A session. We will take a few minutes to go through them. Let's see what we have at this stage. So, Shahwar, there's one relevant question, which is like, in the case of occurrence of the data breach or ransomware attack incidents in Bangladesh, can the victims, can they go to the law enforcement agencies to obtain a remedy in Bangladesh?
Yes, of course that they can. First of all, the first point of contact is the police. And nowadays we see if we look at what has happened in the last few years, we see the police are now becoming more and more aware of these incidents, and the police have this sort of internal mechanism to work with the CIRT under the ICT ministry, the incident center that deals with data breaches and threats, and they work alongside the police in investigations, in finding out how it happened and all of these things. And then once there are some findings and the investigation is concluded, cases can be filed under the Digital Security Act, under the ICT Act against the perpetrators. So there is a very clear-cut steps and remedies available under the laws.
Thank you very much, Shahwar, for this insightful discussion and response as well to the Q&A question. And now it is the end of our webinar. So it goes without saying that data breach response plan has become also a critical component of doing business in this modern era. So for companies who have yet to create one or need a fresh one, we hope this session will be a useful tool and that you will also find some useful suggestion as well as a key consideration when it comes to creating a new set of plan or looking to refine an existing plan for the purpose of improving data security posture. So if you have any related question, please do not hesitate to reach out to our speaker, Shahwar Nizam, or myself via emails as indicated on this page. This session has also been recorded and will be available on a DFDL website and social media. We thank you for your attention, and it is very honored to have all of you in participating in today's webinar. See you next time.
Thank you.